Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 217, recorded Monday, September 21st, 2015. Drew Curtis, candidate for governor. Triangulation is brought to you by Samsung SmartThings. Samsung SmartThings let you monitor, control, and secure your home from wherever you are using your smartphone. Right now, Triangulation listeners get 10% off any featured SmartThings kit and free shipping in the U.S. when you go to smartthings.com/triangulation. Don't forget to use the offer code Triangulation at checkout. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, check out Braintree. With one easy integration, you can offer your customers every way to pay, period. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, go to BraintreePayments.com/triangulation. And by Prosper. Prosper is a peer-to-peer lending marketplace that connects people who are looking to borrow money with those who have money to lend. Visit prosper.com/twit and receive a $50 Visa gift card when you get a loan. It's time for Triangulation, the show that begins the week every Monday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. I get to come in here and talk to some of the best minds in technology. And actually, today is a very special day because we are not only talking to an old friend, somebody who made regular appearances on the Screensavers, the old Screensavers, a technology maven that many of you know, but also a candidate for the governor of Kentucky. So I don't think it's proper to play ruffles and flourishes yet, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome Drew Curtis. It's great to see you. Hi, Drew.
Yeah, thanks for having me. How's it going?
Oh, it's wonderful. Congratulations. We had you a couple of weeks ago on the new Screensavers in an interesting conversation about the role of social media in politics. But today we can go a little bit more wide-ranging. And I'm sure there are people who are voters in the state of Kentucky watching. So we will try to keep out of any hairy areas. But at the same time, I think it's really important that we talk about the election too, the race, not just FARC, not just your history, but the election. Why did you decide to run for governor of all things?
Yeah, so it came out of a series of conversations I had with friends of mine about, why don't good people run? It always seems like it's these career politicians, and then they get up on stage and they don't answer questions, and they like to talk to each other about how bad they are, and it's like, this seems like a terrible way to essentially interview a CEO for a kind of a vital position. And somebody challenged me and they said, why don't you do it? And I was like, well, it looks like it's hard. And which it is, as it turns out. They weren't wrong. But their point was, it's like, well, look, the reason why good people don't do it is exactly the reason you gave. And you're an extrovert, you can handle yourself in the media, you've got reach online. And if you are unwilling to do this, then why would you expect anybody else to? And I thought, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So initially it just seemed like a good idea. But then when I dug into the problems, I found out that I'm the only one who actually knows the problems that are facing the state, which kind of shocked me.
You're a third-party candidate. What's your party?
It's actually no party. It's the I'm independent.
Independent,
so,
just independent.
People keep asking me, is that the independent party? No, it's no party.
Well, that's actually hard because you don't have the support of a established party machine raising money.
Correct. However, we talked a little bit on the last show about how I've got sort of this theory that that political parties are social networks. So it turns out that you need a social network to win, but now we have social networks that are not political parties. And in fact, if somebody posed me the question, they said, could a candidate win only using social media? And my response was, candidates have only ever won using social media. We just call them political parties.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Your opponents, Jack Conway's the Democrat. He has some experience. He's the current attorney general of the state of Kentucky. Is that right? And Matt Bevin, though, is not. He's never held political office, as I understand. He's the Republican candidate.
Right.
So in some ways, he's a citizen candidate too, or is that not the case?
Sort of. I mean, he's very strongly Republican, and he backs all the Republican ideas. The main difference between the two of us is, we're both entrepreneurs, but he's in finance and I'm in tech. So I've got a sort of technology component that I'm bringing to the table.
It's very different, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I don't believe the Republicans have all the good ideas. It's a typical party thing where I guess if you run with a party, you can't say otherwise. But, the reason I'm doing this independent is because, like the vast majority of us, I don't think that both parties have all the good ideas. And so being independent allows you to essentially, I run FARC as a news aggregator, but now you can be a political aggregator and pick all the nice pieces from both sides.
Would you, okay, so you wouldn't say that you're left or right.
Right.
You kind of, I like the idea. It's a novel idea. You don't have a party platform that you have to adhere to. You can just say, well, I believe these things. Although that makes it harder for the electorate, because it's a lot easier just to say, I'm a Democrat. So I don't have to think about it. I'll vote for the Democrat.
It's branding.
Yeah, it's branding. It's a good way of putting it. How hard is it to become a candidate?
So in the state of Kentucky, and I don't know how this works in other states, but it's actually extremely difficult to do anything other than join one of the parties. And I have to believe this was set up that way on purpose, because if I was a political party, I would probably do the same thing. So there's a series of lockouts you have to overcome initially to even get on the ballot. And one of them is if I just pick a party, like if I said I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, then to get on the ballot, you need 2 signatures and a little bit of money. I think like maybe $50.
Two signatures?
Right. You need 2 signatures. And all I had to do is say I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican and 2 signatures and I'm on.
How many did you need?
5,000.
That's okay. There's a broken system right there. But it makes sense because the people in charge of the system are going to make sure the system is preserved, and you're a threat. In fact, I would guess that it's probably Jack Conway that thinks you're a bigger threat than Matt Bevin. I mean, the real threat, of course, in the presidential election, it's a little bit different. There's so many Republican candidates, they could be draining off votes, in effect, throwing the election to the Democrat. But I would guess in your state, you would pull more votes from Jack Conway than Matt Bevin. So the Democrats must be pissed.
So far,
are the Democrats pissed?
Well, they are. They're scared, but you know what's funny is all the early polls, and so we haven't had a poll in 6 weeks. The last one had me at 8%, and this was a week before I qualified for the ballot, so they didn't even know if I was going to get on or not.
Hey, that's pretty good for somebody who's not even a candidate.
I know, fantastic, right? I mean, so at any rate, and I was polling more from the Republican at the time. And there is another poll running right now that's going, and we're hearing that I'm continuing to pull more from the Republican than the Democrat.
Interesting. Well, there's that libertarian streak in conservative politics, and you probably speak to that. And because you're a technologist, you're talking about bringing technology to Kentucky, about beefing up its technology business and things like that. So that's good for business. So that makes sense. Yeah. On the other hand, in social issues, you're probably more on the left. Where did you come down on the Kim Davis issue? You know, Kentucky is in the national news and has been because of the clerk, the county clerk who wouldn't sign marriage licenses for gay couples and who was in fact thrown in jail for a day. I imagine is that a hot button topic in Kentucky right now?
Yeah, in the debate last Tuesday, that came up 4 times.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of hot.
And Bevin thinks this is a good thing for the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, he's wrong. But yeah, he does.
I'm afraid it's not. I'm just speaking for somebody who's outside the state. However you feel, it doesn't look good for Kentucky, right?
No. Well, and so I ended up getting one of the best lines of the debate by complete accident. On the first time this question came up, I was the 3rd response. So Conway, the Democrat, got to say that he didn't want to appoint a special prosecutor because he feels like it's a federal issue and not a state issue, which is kind of a dodge because the county asked him to appoint a state prosecutor to find out if there was a state laws violated. And granted, he's not outside of his bounds. I mean, as the Attorney General, he's allowed to use his own discretion if he wants to pursue anything or not, but he chose not to. And Bevin was attacking him over that issue. Bevin's point is that he thinks that it's a religious freedom issue, which is really off base, and that it's somehow okay for her to not do her job based on religious beliefs. And I got to go third on that question, and I said, well, I think you're both wrong. And here's why. Because if you're the governor, you swear an oath to protect the laws of this state. And it doesn't say only the ones you agree with or only the ones that aren't stupid. You have to protect the stupid laws also. And so I said in Jack Conway's case, he had prerogative to not do that, but you must protect the stupid laws and go after it. And the stupid law that he failed to protect was the gay marriage controversy. It was overturned to the appellate level, and he refused to go after it. Now, I am totally fine with gay marriage. I have no issue with it. I've gone on record and I've said it. But as governor of Kentucky, I would have pursued this to the appellate level because although I think this law is stupid and I don't agree with it, and I didn't think it had any chance to succeed, and it did not, you're the governor. You don't get to pick which laws you're going to protect. But I would have said loud and clear, this really stupid law should be gotten rid of. But in the meantime, I'm going to defend it because there it is. And the same problem is on the other side. You have somebody who's trying to use a religious freedom exemption to not do her job. And that's honestly, that's dangerous from an organizational level because there's all kinds of stuff that I can claim to believe. In fact, we have a couple of atheists in Rowan County right now claiming that they believe that they shouldn't pay taxes as a result of this. And it's a valid argument if you agree with Bevin, but I don't. I think they both messed up. You have to defend the laws of the state, stupid or not, whether you agree with them or not. Because at the core of the issue is really, if we've ever had a problem with like government abusing its power, this is where the abuse comes from, is they arbitrarily sort of decide on how they're going to enforce the laws and how much by whether they agree with them or not as individuals. And I just don't think that's right on any level.
You know, I was kind of surprised because I just assumed, well, Kentucky, it's in the Southeast, it's probably a red state. But I looked at your governors, and you have only had one Republican governor in many, many years. Your current governor's a Democrat.
Like 50 years or something. Yeah. No, we have a split legislature. People are really surprised to find out. Yeah. Like, and we also have the highest percentage of people willing to switch parties to vote.
Good.
Which is great for me because I'm going to need every single one of them.
I actually really like that. On the other hand, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, is also a senator from Kentucky. So it's an interesting state, and it may be up for grabs. You think it's up for grabs?
Yeah, absolutely. It always is. I mean, and our other senator is Rand Paul, and yeah, they're both Republicans, but they are opposite sides of the Republican spectrum. Yeah, you would think you'd have like McConnell and McConnell Jr.
Yeah,
but Rand Paul and Ron Paul. But no, the people in the state really do evaluate everything on a case-by-case basis. Which is really kind of fascinating. And most people don't realize that Kentucky's like that, but it's a very fiercely independent-minded state, surprisingly. They don't really fall into politics too much.
Yeah, I like that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a strong, if Rand Paul is your junior senator, there's a strong libertarian streak in Kentucky politics, which could, of course, benefit you. But
actually, it does benefit me a lot because actually the first people that contacted me were libertarians. So I gave them the talk why I'm not a libertarian just to make sure we were all on the same page. And after I was
done,
a geek.
You have to be a libertarian.
Yeah, I think they were going to throw beer bottles at me or something. And no, it turns out they said, well, you might not be a libertarian, but you're closer than the other two. And I'm like, you know what? If you think so, great.
Yeah.
But, here's what you get. Do you like it? And they said, yeah, we kind of do. Well, okay, let's go.
So do you think you have a chance, Drew?
Yes, I do.
I love it.
And I'll tell you, I won't tell you how this is going to play out because, but basically what's going to happen is that here's what's going to happen. I've got 2 more debates coming up before. Got one September 30th, one October 3rd, and then there's 3 more after that. There's one October 6th that I'm locked out of for some reason.
Yeah, what's the story with that? It's just the Republican and the Democrat.
Yeah, and I don't know what the deal is there. I'm actually really confused on a number of levels there, but the problem they're going to have with that October 6th debate is that on September 30th, the next poll is going to come out, and I'm predicting I'm going to be sitting at around 20% on the low end and not invited to a debate 7 days later. So we'll see what they do with that information.
That's significantly interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can't go into too many details about it, but the next interesting date for this is going to be the week of October 12th. There should be another poll drop, and that's going to have a game-changing number in it. And then at that point, we got 2 weeks to go, 2 more debates in there, and I have no idea how that's going to play out. I have no clue.
Wow.
So we'll see. But yeah, no, I do have a shot. And you know why, though? It's because everybody who I talk to says they don't like their own candidate, but they're afraid of the other one.
Right.
I mean, I have yet to have anybody come up and say, you know what, my candidate's better than you because blah. I mean, absolutely nobody has said that to me. Which my response is, well, then if I don't get elected, it's kind of your fault, right? You know, they're worried about me spoiling for the guy they're afraid of. And I'm like, well, what if they cause me to lose? You got to be worried about that.
We're so used to picking the lesser of two evils in our two-party system. A candidate nobody really wants, but is better than the other guy. That the idea that there might be a third-party candidate, and I think really the argument always given against the third-party candidate is, well, you can't win, and all you can do is be a spoiler, as Ralph Nader was, for instance, in the 2000 presidential election. And so I'm sure they say that to you. What's your response to that?
Yeah, so Ralph Nader didn't cause Al Gore to lose. Al Gore lost because he sucked. Al Gore didn't take Tennessee, all right? He didn't take his own state. And it might be the Tennesseans knew a thing or two about him also, so who knows? But, I mean, the upshot is that if it's the same people that complain about not getting accepted to college because somebody got bumped ahead of them, it's like, are you really whining about being that close to the line? And in our case, we've got, like, I was talking to Heather about this when I realized, like, 2 weeks ago that I said, you know, if either one of these candidates was average, we would have no shot. But good news, they're not.
Suck.
They're not good, and well, that's why everybody's telling me. They're like, I like you better than my guy. I'm like, well, then you better get out there and vote. So come on. I mean, and the good news is this: everybody is saying that. So if we just can all get on the same page here, then we should be able to knock this out of the park.
Well, I think a big part of it is letting people know you have a chance, right? They don't want to throw their vote away.
Well, you know, that's what they say, but I'm arguing that. So, and we have a unique situation coming up here. Well, not really unique. There's a couple of other states that have a similar problem. So Kentucky's got an unfunded pension liability. Like, this is actually the biggest problem. And I think Illinois and New Jersey have been getting all of the media about this, but we're right there with them. And I said this in the debate the other day too. It's like, you know, so I have proposed a pension fix, which is high math stuff. You can download it. It's interesting if you like that kind of thing. But the other two guys, when they answer the question about this, give answers that to me strongly suggest that they have not even looked at this problem. I mean, not even looked at it. And here's the deal. We go bankrupt in 2 to 3 years. So what this means is that we have two party candidates running for an office, which is a sure career-ending move for them. And the next governor of Kentucky will be a one-term governor, except with me, it'll be voluntary. With them, they're going to get tossed out because the state's going bankrupt. So, you know, and the fact that they don't see it coming, I mean, again, it makes me really question why they want this job at all. If either of them win this job, they are done as a politician forever. So, and I'm being really honest about it. I'm like, we have some hard choices coming up and we got to make them, but at least I told you in advance. So we'll just, you know, I'll try to do the best job I can and we'll see where we get.
You're a smart guy. Do you find it frustrating that politics, as we do it here in the United States, doesn't really favor intelligence? That, in fact, you know, well, you have perhaps a solution, but it involves math. And that means that almost guarantees that nobody's going to read it. No,
that's actually okay.
It's okay?
And here's why. Yeah, well, so here's the thing. I learned this so my first company was a dial-up ISP. And, you know, when you're growing an ISP, occasionally you're going to get busy signals when you need more lines. And so there's always that 1 week delay between when you put the order for the new lines in and then when they actually show up. So in the meantime, everybody's angry about the busy signals. But what we discovered is that when they called up and they'd say, are you fixing this? We would say, yes, we're working on it. Hang on for a few more days. And they were actually totally content with that issue. And you wouldn't think that would be the response they'd be okay with. What they actually wanted to know is, are you working on it? Not, are you going to fix this instantly? And so what I've discovered, especially with the intelligent answers, is that I put them out there in great detail. And basically I say, I have a solution for the pension system. Would you like to know more about that? I can go to the basic 2-sentence version and explain to you the basics of it. Or I have a 3-page spreadsheet online with 35 years of financial projections that you can download. And if you'd rather talk on that level, I'm totally willing to do it. And what I've discovered is people are cool with that. In fact, they like it because they may not understand the solution, but when they look at it for themselves, they're like, okay, this is an extremely complicated solution. It does look like this guy's trying. And then when they ask people who know anything about it, those people look at it, they parse my data, and they go, you know what? This actually looks pretty reasonable. So what I've discovered is like sort of one of the conventional wisdoms is you can't speak intelligently to the electorate. And I've actually discovered That's not exactly true. But there's two ways to do it. The first way is to be a jerk and go, well, you know, I'm so much smarter than you. I figured this solution out because I know math and you're just a dumb hillbilly. Well, yeah, if you do that, yeah, you're going to get a highly negative reaction. But
no kidding.
if you go, I'm not going to assume you're dumb, but you may not care about this. So tell me to what level you'd like to discuss this, and I will be more than happy to talk to you about it at whatever level you want, the spreadsheet or you want the summary. And people, I find if you engage with people and you say, I'm making no assumptions about your level of understanding on this, but let me know where you want to talk about it, and I'm happy to. They're cool with that. They actually don't mind. And in fact, the number one reaction I got after the debate was, well, actually, it was a two-part reaction. One, I didn't dodge any questions, and I answered in great detail, which was two things that people have not seen a politician do before.
Traditionally,
And they liked it.
I think people rely on the media, on press, newspapers particularly, to, okay, I can't understand his solution, but somebody surely at the newspaper will look at it, figure it out, and tell me whether it makes sense or not. I'm not sure what the state of journalism is in Kentucky, but I see it around the rest of the country, and I kind of worry that maybe that role isn't being fulfilled these days by our Fourth Estate.
You know, so I was really surprised to find that out. So, of course, I run FARC, right? I mean, you think I got a high opinion of journalism? Not really. But you know what was amazing was to find out that almost every political, and I say almost, I'm hedging, I'm assuming I'm going to meet somebody who's a political journalist that does not have full command of the issues but it hasn't happened yet.
Interesting.
And I talked to him about it, and I was like, why is it that political journalists are, I mean, they're so knowledgeable about the issues at such an atomic level, it blew my mind. And they said, well, when you talk to political candidates and you call them out on stuff, they always yell at you. So your only option is you have to have the data to back up what you say, because they're going to call you out. So as a result, like, they're masters on almost every single issue facing the state. It blew my mind. They really know, like, the pension thing is complicated. Every single one of them understands the problem intimately. I was really surprised to find that out. And so as a result, at least in politics in our state, and I don't know if it's like New York may be different, but in our state, they absolutely know if they're being lied to or if the solutions are wrong. And so right now, where I've got them with 6 weeks to go is they're more or less saying, and this is everybody, conservative and liberal journalists alike, are saying, we think he's the smartest and the best candidate. We just don't think he can win. And well, now I'm working on, well, wait, why not? You know, what is it about, you know, if I am actually the best candidate by a long shot, why do you keep saying I can't win? And I don't think they're convincing people I can't win. I think that it's irritating people, which is good, because they want to go, wait, no, actually, he can win. It's just a matter of if they come out and vote. So surprisingly, the media coverage has been amazingly fair and accurate. I was really excited to find that out and very shocked.
That's really encouraging, frankly.
Yeah.
You mentioned Heather. Heather Curtis is your wife, COO of FARC.com. She's been with you since the beginning at FARC.com. And also is your running mate. She's running for lieutenant governor. That's fun.
Yeah.
What you must at night, though, talk to one another and say, do we really want to do this for the next 4 years?
You know what's been really funny is that, and everybody told me the same thing, by the way, so I was totally expecting. Normally, even people who don't run for office with their spouses, apparently it puts intense pressure on marriages to the point where most of them collapse. So, yeah, I was a little worried about that in the beginning, but yeah, in fact, the opposite's happened with us. I got asked exactly that question during the debate, and I didn't say the actual answer, which is, you know, strangely, this is going to sound like I'm making it up, but that's why I'm going to tell you anyway. We've actually gotten closer.
It's kind of
believe it or not, because we've always worked. Yeah, kind of. We've always worked really closely together anyway on FARC, but it's never been this time critical or important. And we've never had to master so many different subjects, because it's not like I'm a public policy expert, although I'm getting pretty good. And I would argue I'm better than the other two guys right now. But we've had to coordinate and move at lightning speed like we never have before. And we were always good at that, but we've never been pushed this hard. And it has actually gotten to the point where the other day after the debate, when I crushed it, on Wednesday, we were sitting around talking about exactly this issue. And Heather said to me, she goes, you know what? She's like, I can't believe I'm going to admit this. She said, but I think I found my calling in this, which blew me away, because I was like, I'm not sure I have, but I'm, you know, that's great. But again, it boils down to she has always been interested in issues of public policy herself, mostly exploring, could there be a solution? And now I think she's realizing we pull this out, we get to do this. Like, it's no more of this sitting on the couch and complaining about, man, what if people would just change things? I mean, we'll actually, like yesterday, me and a friend went to the Bengals football game in Cincinnati. And we drove across.
Which is, by the way, I should say, just over the river. It's not. It's not like you're going far away. Yeah.
No, it's like if you jump across the Ohio River, it's Kentucky. Yeah, it's pretty much a local team. I got there in an hour and a half. I have season tickets. I split with a friend, and I'm driving across this bridge, which is slated to be replaced, and it's kind of falling apart. And as I'm driving across, I realize, holy crap, this might actually be personally on me to fix this bridge that I'm driving across right now in about 2 months. But I can do it.
And that excites you.
I actually got a plan for that too.
That excites you.
It's kind of cool. I was like, hey, better me than them. Why not?
I think if nothing else, what you're doing is inspiring people to rethink their cynicism over politics. The thing that I think is the worst is the sense that it doesn't matter. They're all buffoons. I'm not going to vote because I don't care. It's the lesser of two evils. I got more important things to think about, whatever it is. And this really deep-rooted cynicism, which has been growing over the last few decades in this country, is so damaging, I think. It proves itself true, right? So
not only that, I'm convinced at this point that concept is actually secretly being pushed by the parties themselves. I don't mean like in a conspiracy theory way.
No.
This benefits them.
Yes.
If only the people who deeply support the parties show up, they've kind of got a duopoly lock on this process, and it's a great deal. So they don't want us to vote. And I can tell you how you know that. Have they made it easy to register?
Right.
Is it easy to vote online?
Right.
I mean, why can't I vote now, 6 weeks out from the race?
Right.
I mean, it's impossible to get in. And they make you show an ID. They do everything they could possibly can. And it's not just the Republicans. They get this hung on them all the time. The Democrats don't want it to be easy either, because as long as it's hard, they can lock us all out and they can keep control of this process.
And that's what I find so inspiring about this. It's possible to run because you care. It's possible to... Now, okay, well, let me ask you this question, because I think sometimes when you get in a position like this, you have to be, the word is, politic. You can't exactly be truthful and honest and authentic when you're running for office. You need to think about every word you say. Are you doing that?
I think the most I'm doing is not cussing as much.
Well, that's good. And you can do that. Well, I don't think that's being untrue to yourself. I mean, I have to do that as a radio host. I can't cuss.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you train yourself not to cuss.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, but here's the thing, though. It's like, so part of it is really, it wasn't like it was a principle I wasn't willing to violate. But my problem is I have a really hard time lying because I don't remember details.
I'm bad at it, too.
And I gave it up a long time ago, mostly for pragmatic reasons because, whatever. And part of the problem I was going to have, and I knew this, is that I actually cannot change the way that I deliver stuff in order to basically pander to somebody. It's just not my personality, and I can't do it. But I had a theory that perhaps that's the one thing that everybody's looking at a candidate. So, for example, I got a question during the debate. They said, what would you do about education? The cost of college tuition is skyrocketing. Pre-K education is very important. Do you plan to fund these things? And I said, no. And of course, they're like, what? Well, and so here's the reason why is because I'm just looking at it. We got a pension system that's collapsing. And then after that, we've got tax reform we got to hit. And we actually have a problem with the state budget where they faked a surplus last year. There's a long story behind it. But the upshot is I was like, we don't have any money. I believe in pre-K education. I know that college tuition is skyrocketing. I believe education is a great investment. We are broke. And if we get lucky, I said, like 2017, maybe we fix a few of these things and I find $1 billion in the couch back in the governor's mansion, I will get right on that. But right now, it's not something I'm looking at. But I do believe it's important. I just can't do anything about it. And I will not lie to you and tell you that I just am going to fund this because I'm hoping you'll vote for me.
That is so...
And what's funny is that resonated.
I love it. Because it's so contrary to what politicians always do, which is they promise everything. They basically buy people's votes by promising that whatever their special interest is, that's the one I'm going to fix, without any regard to whether it's possible or not.
Right.
And I
in my case, The Democrat has been asked on multiple occasions, will you fund blah, blah, blah? He's never said no,
right,
ever. And there's a few things that I know. I mean, maybe he might be able to pull some crazy gymnastics, but there's no way. I mean, I don't think we can fund any of the things he agreed to, much less all of them. And he's just doing it because he's hoping that people will get behind him. But I've discovered that if you tell people, I like your cause, I would fund it if I could, but we can't. They're like, well, thanks for being truthful.
Honest.
I'm like, well,
I've never heard an honest politician before.
Yeah, I know.
That addresses.
But I think it can work. That's my point. I think it can work. I think you can say exactly what's going on. I think people will not punish you for it. I think they're cool with it.
That addresses one of the questions we had from the chat room from 4Ds, who said, you see politicians with the highest hopes, hope and change, get into office and then realize none of this is doable, and
right.
So maybe that is such a novel idea. Maybe if you said that up front, and we're frank up front, maybe people could handle that. I guess this comes from a point of view of trusting the electorate, which I think nobody does.
Mm-hmm. No, they don't, but I think they could, because, I mean, people are dying for some reason to get out there and get energized. And I've actually said, this question hasn't come up yet, but it will at some point, and it's relevant to this issue, which is, who's your presidential candidate? I would argue I currently don't have one, but I think Donald Trump could be it if he makes one major adjustment to his strategy. So here's what he's doing, by the way. Donald Trump is basically going, hey, everything's broken. We should fix it. And everybody goes, yeah, you're right. Well, that's true. So everything's broke is step one, and we should fix it is step three. If he started going, and here's a couple of policy things I've been looking at that seem to go in the right direction, and they were legitimately, at least pragmatic, he'd be unstoppable. There'd be nobody that wouldn't vote for that. He'd get my vote. My problem is I don't think he has step two. But if he came up with it and started saying things like, and here's one way to fix that, and I'd be like, well, okay, now he credibly has convinced me that although I haven't heard all of his solutions, it sounds like he's working on some, and that would be enough to get me to swing. But if he doesn't, I'm just going to sit back and wait.
Well, but I should point out, there's also something there's two ways to go. You can say, you can preach the policy of hope and say, we're going to fix everything. But there's also a completely, just as, by the way, disingenuous point of view to say everything sucks. And as Donald Trump says, everybody's stupid.
Yeah.
and that's in my mind just as facile a point of view, because it certainly appeals to people who are angry and feel disenfranchised, and that's who he appeals to. People who feel like they're not being heard. Their concerns aren't being, considered in Washington. But as you point out, it's not a recipe for policy any more than the everything's wonderful, let's do everything is.
Yeah, right.
So ultimately,
here's their strategy.
Yeah.
Here's what they're doing. So if you have a two-party race, generally the way this lays out is that 40% are going to vote Democrat no matter what.
Right. It's
and
all about the
40%
swing.
are going to vote Republican.
Yeah.
So really their strategy is we got to swing the undecideds and the not paying attentions.
Yes.
And maybe shake some people loose just to get across that line. And so what happens is that you already have at the beginning all of the people who will ever jump to you for policy reasons. And then what you're left with is a bunch of people who will be more or less arbitrary in their decisions. So the reason why I'm taking a different tactic is because as an independent, I don't have an automatic 40%. I have to shake them all loose.
Yep.
So I got to do something really unusual, which is appeal to common sense, which sounds crazy, ironically, but there you go.
And you have to be a little bit of a policy wonk, I think. You have to dig into the weeds.
I did a very early AMA on Reddit, and they totally called me out on that. I did it the day we filed, and they're like, how are you going to fix the heroin problem? I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
And they're like, well, you can't say that. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. You have to figure it out. You're the governor. Like, you can't elect you on I don't know. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's a valid point. So I started reading.
Right.
And lo and behold, I was looking also the other day, I was trying to find a piece I wrote back in March. So I was going through the old folders on our governor file stuff. And man, I've come 1,000 miles since the day I filed. I can talk to you about policy for as long as you want to at almost any level. And I do it all the time because I always learn something when I engage with somebody who also understands a particular facet of it. So, but all it really boils down to is talk to people about it, ask questions, read a lot, ask more questions, and eventually you'll have a pretty good command of it.
We're talking to Drew Curtis, an old friend who appeared many times on the old Screensavers. Those were good days, promoting and talking about Fark.com, which was always and is still a fun place to go to learn about the news from a different angle. He's running for governor of Kentucky. The election is in November. But this isn't that kind of interview. We're not interviewing him as a candidate, although I'm fascinated by all this. I mean, here we have somebody who's one of us who's deep inside the machine. So giving us a report from inside the machine, it's fascinating.
I have discovered probably about a dozen things at this point so I read a Campaign 101 book just to, try to figure out, I always like to try to figure what is this about? And then do I agree with it? And I think at this point I'm at about 10 to 15 things that are very strong pieces of conventional wisdom that are wrong. And I've got plenty enough to write a book about this afterwards, so keep an eye out for that, because it's this will be the whole handbook of, and in fact, I want to give a talk at TED this year, because when I was there last year, they have all these talks about, the environment and, social issues and whatever. And then at some point during the talk, inevitably government comes up and they go, hey, do you know how hard it is to deal with government? And everybody shrugs and goes, yeah, can't fix that. And I'm looking at this room, I'm like, aren't you all billionaires? Like, didn't you found like major companies? You know what's harder than getting elected? Founding a billion-dollar company. Getting elected is easy. Every person in that room could get elected to any office in the United States without trying too hard, with the possible exception of president. And it turns out we got a guy from TED trying that. I don't know that he's going to, we'll see how it goes, but Larry Lessig is taking a shot at that.
I know, and I love his idea.
Because we talked about it. It's like, he wanted to re-elect Congress, and I said, it'd be easier to get elected president.
Love it.
I don't know if he remembers that conversation or not, but the next thing I know, he's running for president.
I do.
Hey.
You take credit. I love it. We're going to take a break, come back with more with Drew. It's always fascinating to talk to him, but this is a really unusual point of view. I never thought I'd be talking to a candidate for governor on triangulation.
I never thought I'd be one. So I understand.
Hey, let me talk a little bit right now about something that was a Kickstarter campaign some years ago, is very successful. Their plan at Smart Things was to solve a conundrum. How do you automate your house, combine all the devices, the smart devices in your house, without a myriad of different languages and applications on your smartphone? They said, what if we made a hub that spoke all the languages and then talked to your smartphone on a single app? And the Smart Things Hub was born. Now Samsung Smart Things is making it even better. This is the new hub, just came out, and I love it. There are no monthly fees required. This is something you can do in your home right now. We live in a smart world. Your light bulbs might be smart if you've got those new Cree light bulbs or the Hue light bulbs. Your phones are smart. You could have smart locks, smart heat, smart everything's, thermostats. Samsung Smart Things connects all your favorite smart devices into a single, easy-to-use interface. You can control, monitor, and secure your home, not just from your home, but anywhere. With Smart Things, you can let your home know you're on the way, so the lights are on and the AC is turned up, or it'll unlock your door when you pull in the driveway. There's something about having a house that responds to you that is magical and wonderful. Smart Things makes it easy. In fact, they're making it even easier with these new Smart Things featured kits. It's because this is where you start. This is the starting point. You get the featured kit, which includes the hub, so you get the 2 smart power outlets, the Samsung Smart Things hub, and then you can talk to now these 2 outlets, but add up to 100 more devices that you could talk to in your house, control them, get them to do pretty much anything you want to do. It's more than it's really, I think using the term home automation is not right. And I like that they called it Smart Things, Samsung Smart Things, because what you really want is not to home automate. What you really want is for your home to be responsive to you and your needs, to be smart. That's what this does. Smarten your home with the Samsung Smart Things project kits. Any featured kit, 10% off right now when you go to smartthings.com/triangulation. Use the offer code triangulation to save 10% and get free shipping in the U.S. Make your home a more intelligent place, a place that responds to you and your needs. It's really cool. You got to try it. Easy to do. Samsung Smart Things is at smartthings.com/triangulation. We're not talking home automation. We're talking just a smarter home. Smartthings.com/triangulation.
We're talking to a very smart person, Drew Curtis of Fark.com. He and his wife, Heather, are running for governor and lieutenant governor of the state of Kentucky. Elections just a couple of months off. You say you won the debate. Is that the general consensus? I mean, I think you won, but is that the general consensus?
Yeah, every single article written about the debate said that I won, except for one. Confusingly, the Associated Press article forgot to mention I was even there.
I know, they didn't say your name.
It's really confusing. I mean, you know, everybody's like, do you think that, you know, they were biased against you? And I'm like, well, I mean, there might be bias in journalism, but not usually for both candidates at the same time and not me. I honestly don't know what happened. I have no explanation for that.
I don't think they were watching.
It looks really bad for that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he wasn't there.
He didn't go.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I have no idea because, I mean, it read like somebody who didn't watch it.
I think that what we're really seeing there is a bias towards the two-party system and the feeling that an independent candidate is by definition irrelevant. So as I said, I think this is inspiring. I think this can if people are watching this, and not just in Kentucky, but everywhere in the United States, I think they can be inspired by the notion that you can make a difference, you can get involved, that politics can be a positive thing, not a negative thing. And that, if you do only that, you've done a huge service to everybody in the country because
you know, one of the things that's happened as a result of me running, so like I mentioned before that the position on the pension issue, which is going to bankrupt the state in a couple of years, is so bad by the other two guys that I don't think they've looked at it. Well, here's the thing. If I'm not in this race, they're not even talking about it.
They don't have to.
It wouldn't even come up.
Nobody challenges it.
They would just dance around it. So they're not even mentioning it. And the funny thing is also that I also found pretty quickly that there's also sort of a second issue, which is pretty important, but not in the way you would think. Like the way I like to solve problems is if we have 1,000 problems, then I want to build a matrix, and I want everything that's in the corner of easy to do has the most impact. I want to start on that first. And it turns out that although pensions is really hard to fix, the thing that's right up in that upper right corner is actually, and this is going to sound weird unless you are aware of it, is actually ex-felon voting rights, believe it or not. And it has to do with the way Kentucky handles it. Kentucky, if you're an ex-felon, is like the worst place to live because you can't vote. You have to put it on every job application, every apartment application. And essentially, if you get a felony for anything, for the rest of your life, you are at best going to be lower middle class, stuck in low paying jobs, or you're going to have to become an entrepreneur, which might work out for you. But in general, we've got all of these things stacked up against ex-felons, and it turns out, so I saw this, and I kept getting asked about it, because it would be, like I talked to a gal, she said, I'm 35 years old. When I was 20, I got pulled over by a cop, and I had 4 ounces of marijuana in the car, and the limit was 1, and I got a felony. And now I'm, for the next 15 years, served my time, went through probation. I can't vote. I can't get an apartment. I can't get a job. And this started coming up over and over and over again when I was traveling around. And so I was like, you know, why am I getting asked this question so often? So I suspected that possibly the reason might be that there's a lot of people that are having a problem with this. So I looked it up, and lo and behold, the state of Kentucky has a population of 4 million. The number of people who have a felony conviction who are now out of jail and past parole is 180,000 people. That's like 5% of the state population. But the really chilling statistic, it's 25% of African Americans.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I looked it up, and it turns out the origins of not allowing felons to vote was when they got rid of Jim Crow laws.
Right.
They had to find something to replace it, and that's what they came up with to keep black people from voting. And every black person in the state knows it. Me, a white person who's not paying attention, had not ever come across this, but during the debate, they asked the question about ex-felon voting rights. I don't think the other two guys were expecting that one, and this one's a really strong issue. And I called it. I said, this is the new Jim Crow. This has to be thrown out immediately. And every person in that audience, I could see it, it wasn't everybody, who's had experience with this sat up straight. And did I just hear that terminology being used for the first time? And I've been asked before, they're like, how do we know you're going to do anything about this when you get elected? Because people have said this before. And I said, well, you know, I'm not trying to keep my party in power, and I'm not trying to make myself rich. I really am trying to do things that help everybody. And this is way in that corner of easy to do and has the most impact. So I'm going to get right on that.
That's really interesting, because I would say that most career politicians would say, oh, that's the third rail. You don't want to touch that. Now I can say you're soft on crime. I mean, I can go against you on that. Have they started?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Have they started with negative campaign ads against you yet?
Oh, yeah. No, they haven't actually. And the reason why, well, first of all, the other two candidates agreed with my position. I just came
Wow.
out stronger.
Good for you.
So there's no
Yeah.
disagreement currently, which is nice. No, they haven't come after me yet because the campaign 101 playbook says that you don't target the third place
Right.
guy.
Right.
And the argument given is they call it punching down. That's not it. The reason why, it's the same reason that if you don't want to shout too loudly about your Twitter detractors,
Right.
because that just gives them publicity and a leg to stand on. You want to leave that alone.
Right.
So the idea is basically, and I knew that going into the debate, that they were going to pretty much ignore me and try to pretend I wasn't there, which is a huge advantage to me because I knew it in advance. So no, they haven't tried to do the attacks yet. That will start about 2 weeks after I present evidence that I'm actually a bona fide threat. And
Right.
the first time that's going to come up is September 30th. And the second time that's going to come up is sometime during the week of October 12th when I finally, well, I won't go into it, but there's a game-changing thing coming at that point.
It's really interesting because you're a strategic guy. You've thought this out.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a campaign manager who's been through a lot of these races, or are you just doing this on your own?
I have a campaign manager who has been on 4 different campaigns. 2 of them were congressional, and all of them lost, which is why I hired him. Because I've discovered that people who succeed don't usually know why.
Yes.
But people who fail absolutely know why they failed. So I was like, you know what, this seems like a good thing. And the other problem is that I'm going against all known strategy at this point, so I pretty much have to be doing it myself. So, and we'll just see where it plays out. So we're basically in completely new territory here.
Who is
and
it?
if it works, it's going to be huge.
Was it Will Wheaton who said, if Drew Curtis wins governor, I'm moving to Kentucky?
It was actually Adam Savage. But
Adam
I'm pretty
Savage
sure Will
said
will
it.
also.
Will feels the same way, I'm guarantee you. But that's right. It was Adam
bet he
Savage.
will,
I'm moving to Kentucky. Hey, wouldn't that be great? Let's all just, okay, first get elected, and then we're all moving to Kentucky.
Please. Well, I mean, think about what a game changer that would be, is that, you basically have somebody who's a technologist, who's smart and tries to figure things out, who's pretty much in control of the executive. I mean, I'm calling everybody I know, no matter where they live. I'd be like, look, I don't know what we're going to have you guys do, but get here now. Because we have to invent something that's never been done before in the history of the United States. And we got about 6 weeks to do it. And I need a very smart person I know to come and help me out.
And by the way, Kentucky's a great state. Louisville's a wonderful city. There's a lot of beautiful places to live. You get the economy tanked up there and get that technology moving. I think that you could make this a new utopia, a magical place in the United States. I think this is. I'm excited. I want to vote for you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Anybody who moves here before the beginning of October can vote. So you got about a week and a half. Just like, houses are cheap, man. There's like places that are like $25,000 at downtown Lexington. Just grab one of those, clean it up a little bit, and then vote on November 3rd, and then go back to what you were doing, I guess, or stick around because it's going to be interesting.
How's the internet there? All I need is internet.
Yeah, it's pretty good in the cities. Outside the cities, it's trouble. Louisville was just picked as a possible Google Fiber rollout city.
Yeah.
And like I was telling them, it's like, what do you think Google's going to decide if I get elected governor? I bet that would be a pretty strong, check mark on the list of things they're looking for. Because I know a lot of the guys over there.
One of the things that happens, people get elected in the executive, and then they have to deal with the legislature, and it can be very challenging. In fact, I think the hardest thing about politics is that it's the art of compromise, of working with people who have differing points of view and finding a common ground. Do you feel like you can do that? You don't seem like an ideologue.
Yeah, no, I'm actually in a far better position to do that than the other guys, because normally what happens is one party gets elected to the governor's office and they immediately start locking out the other party. And I have no intention of doing that, because I need those guys, so it's going to be, hey, I don't care who has the idea. And in fact, what I'm noticing is that the real problem they have is not necessarily the conceptual stuff. It's the execution. It's the way that they craft it. So, like, to give you an example, there were 3 Republicans that filed bills in response to this Kim Davis thing to try to pretend that they were on the same side of the religious freedom thing. And 2 of these bills are just utter garbage. I mean, they're so ridiculous. It's not even funny. I mean, if we tried to pass those 2 bills, the same thing that happened in Indiana with their religious freedom thing would happen here, and that's just not a good idea. But one of the bills, and these were all 3 Republican filed, by the way, one of them I actually like, because the implementation is good. And what it says is you cannot force any government official or any person to perform in a ceremony or venerate a ceremony, or even, you know, to feel bad about not liking it. But if you're a government official whose job it is to issue a license, you must issue a license, because that is not a ceremony. And you know what? I'd pass that in about 2 seconds. No problem. And it's the implementation that matters. It's not am I for or against it. It's like, well, how are we going to do this is the question I'm asking.
That is really the needs to be the goal of all politics, which is how can we make this work? Not
right.
How
well,
can
they
I?
Don't care though.
No.
They're all about, you know, keep my party in power, make my buddies rich, and then if we accidentally do anything that makes society better, that's just, you know, it's third priority at best.
Have you found things that have surprised you once you got into the campaign? Things you didn't expect?
Yeah, tons of them. I'm trying to think of the really interesting ones. We discussed earlier about how I wasn't supposed to sound smart, and people don't actually mind that.
I love that. Is so encouraging to me.
Yeah. The other thing that was interesting is I found out, like, there's necessarily a whole lot of stuff you can do to move the needle. The jury is still out on this one, but so one of the things you're supposed to do is buy a lot of advertising time, and spend a lot of time running around meeting people. Well, actually, and this is the best one I found so far that surprised me. So you would think, right? Let's say you're going to run for office tomorrow, and you got to get the word out, right? And you don't have a lot of money for commercials. So what would you think you would do? What would you do, Leo? What do you think?
You'd have a lot of town hall meetings and go out and kiss babies.
Yeah, exactly. So you know what? It really weirds people out. Turns out. It's like that skeezy guy in the bar.
It is.
Like you and your friends.
You're glad
like
handing
out, and the dude comes up. It's like the worst line ever. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good to see you. You gonna vote for me?
Yeah, the says, hey, I'm having a beer here. Go away.
It's the worst. You know, I always think that when I see these photo ops, you know, the president eating barbecue, it's like they don't want you there. You're nothing but a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no, but what I did find out is that there's a secondary strategy you can employ. So what you do is you do go to the bar.
Yeah. And you have a drink.
Sure that at least somebody knows you're coming.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if they want to. So my thing has been like, and I've been doing this. And friends have taken me up on this. I'm like, you know, are you going to have a backyard Kentucky football viewing party this weekend with about 20 people at it?
Fun.
You want me to show up and drink all your beer?
Fun.
Believe me, I'll do it. So that's kind of it. So somebody who knows you're there maybe wants to introduce you to one or two people, but no big deal. And then the real trick is then you're just available. So I don't go around the room and, you know, just like, you know, dry hump everybody. I hang out and I like, does anybody want to talk about anything? And inevitably 2 or 3 people will come up and say hi. And then those people will go back to their groups and they will tell them that they had a good experience. And that's how you do it. You don't mess with people.
You said you're an extrovert. I think one of the things that keeps people out of politics is it seems to be a certain type of person that wants to be a governor or a senator or a president. And usually the kind of person, as you say, you wouldn't really want to spend much time with. But at the same time, you need to like people, right? I mean, you need to be smart.
Yeah,
what is it you think that somebody who's running for governor, what attributes are the most important, do you think?
I think being a true extrovert is hugely helpful. There aren't too many of those I've discovered. Like, even people that I think are extroverted.
Not in tech.
Yeah, I mean, well, just really anywhere.
Yeah.
But it helps a lot. So that's one. But you can still do it. Like, one of the candidates in particular is a incredible introvert, actually. Like, I can tell it's really hard for him to. He does a really good job on stage, but I can tell it's really hard. So it's not impossible. You just have to be able to do it. Or a better way to say it is like, you know, my tech guy, Mike Andrews, who's been working on every company I've had since 1996, swears that he only plays an extrovert on TV. He's actually introverted.
Yep, I'm that way. Yep.
What I would say, because out at like every live music performance in downtown Lexington, he's driving around the country to meet people all the time. But he's like, well, I'm an introvert. Well, okay. So the real question is not, are you an extrovert? It's, can you be one?
Right.
And if the answer is you can be an extrovert, then that's probably going to be enough to carry you through. I will say this, though, is like, of all of the things so far, the only thing that presented a major challenge to, you know, sort of my skill set was the actual debate, because I've never done that before. And I honestly, it was the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life, bar none. It was really, really difficult. But now that I've done it, and now that I found out that it's a little less mysterious, I know a little more of the unknowns. I'm really not worried about the next one. It should be fine.
Yeah, you got 2 more. You got the debate, which I like. By the way, I have to say, of all the things that happen in politics in this country, I think the debates are the most useful. Of course, it can
Yes.
to the electorate. It can vary on the format. I think the 2 Republican debates we've seen, the format is not ideal because you get a minute and then a rebuttal, and it's too short a period of time, and you have too many candidates on stage to really learn anything about any individual. It all ends up being about one-liners. But I think
Well, the
that
whole
a well-done
debate
debate
style-
is huge.
Yeah, well, the problem with it is, though, it's kind of a 19th century format.
Yeah, Lincoln
And
Douglas,
it
baby.
should be updated. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the problem. So, you know what we're really looking for is they're just looking for people to just punch each other in the face. I mean, if we could just do that, that's probably what everybody wants to see.
That's why Donald Trump
but-
does so well, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
He's great
and
at
one of
it.
the things that I've been sort of wondering about is, like, so this first debate, I wouldn't have used it anyway, but they didn't allow us to bring mobile phones or anything that connected to the internet. And I don't think I would have used it because I've got a pretty good command of the issues. But I thought, this is really weird because I'm in office and I get asked the question, I don't know, I'm going to Google it. As opposed to have to sit up here and try to pretend I've got some kind of a stance on something. So it seems odd that you would do that. And also, too, it's like I don't mind the opportunity to rebut the other guys, but sort of the way it worked with us is that if they ask you the question first, you had 60 seconds to respond, and then the 2 other guys got 30 seconds. The problem with that format is that means that any possible question you could get asked, you must have 2 different length answers for. And in particular, the rebuttal, I prepared, I just said, I'm going to have a 15-second one-line sentence and then assume I'm going to respond to something one of the other guys said with the other 15 seconds. I don't know how they prepared, but that's what I did. That's kind of hard, though, because it's like you don't really get to learn a whole lot about the solutions I'm throwing out there. But the good news is that those became the basis for questions for interviews I had later. And so in that sense, it was helpful.
Actually, I want to talk a little more about debates and how you prepared and why it was so nerve-wracking. But we have to take a break. Drew Curtis is our guest. I love just saying, candidate for governor of Kentucky. He's also the founder and chief bottle washer at Fark.com, which, we really should talk a little bit about that. I mean, you have, this is kind of almost unprecedented. You're going on, what, 15 years? How long have you been doing this for?
17 in February.
17 years. As a successful kind of news site. That's amazing all by itself. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And also ad blocking, because you've done an interesting thing on your site. But
definitely.
But first, let's talk about Braintree. If you're a mobile developer, you got to know about Braintree. We've talked about it a lot by now. I hope you know about Braintree. They're owned by PayPal. That's a recent acquisition. In fact, they've made more acquisitions to make them the best mobile payment solution. It's a full stack solution that you can implement in your app on your website with 10 lines of code in almost any format. They support everything. In fact, they're so great, they'll even do it for you. If you don't have the time, they'll work with you to get it done. There's a sandbox. You can go right now to BraintreePayments.com/triangulation. Try the sandbox. Now, what do you get? You get everything. You get every way to pay, period. Of course, you get PayPal, but you also get Apple Pay and Android Pay. And by the way, what's cool about that is, Android Pay just went online. If you're using Braintree in your mobile app, it's as simple as going to your control panel and flipping a switch. It'll suddenly say, oh, here's Android Pay. Check that box? Yes. And, it couldn't be easier. You'll be able to support Bitcoin through Coinbase. You'll be able to support Venmo, of course, credit cards. Their One-Touch SDK is super cool. That's the one Uber uses so that you don't have to pay. You just get out of the car and it's all handled for you. Now, if that's not part of Uber's secret sauce, I don't know what is. That's Braintree. Everybody uses Braintree. GitHub uses Braintree. Airbnb, Hotel Tonight, Living Social, Munchery uses it. BraintreePayments.com/triangulation. It's got everything. It checks all the boxes. It's secure. By the way, that is non-trivial. In fact, this feeling of insecurity, this feeling of, I don't know what's going on here, is one of the reasons there's a 70% mobile cart abandonment rate. Mobile carts are people are just nervous about the whole thing. Braintree eliminates that fear. It's secure. You get fast payouts, which is, of course, important to you. And your customers get the best possible experience. And after all, isn't that what you're trying to create with your mobile app? I want you to visit BraintreePayments.com/triangulation. Check it out. Their customer service,
the way it works. You can use the sandbox or the SDK so you can really get a sense of it. And by the way, as a little sweetener, your first $50,000 in payments will be fee-free, but you have to use this URL, BraintreePayments.com/triangulation. Braintree Payments are truly the way to go. Everybody who really counts uses them. The ones that customers like the best use them. You should be using them too. BraintreePayments.com/triangulation, and we thank them so much. They've been very supportive of everything we're doing here at Twit, and we appreciate it. Drew Curtis is our guest, Fark.com. He is, I think, Drew, you could do 4 years in the State House, but I think next, then we got to talk about the presidency, because I think
No.
you would never do that. What's the difference?
No, that looks like the worst job ever.
Maybe.
So what people don't realize about the presidency is that you don't get to make a lot of decisions there. I mean, the best you can do is not get us into wars. And I guess that's important. But as far as like the fixing of the stuff or whatever, there's very little you can do at that level to make any impact. I mean, look at Obama. I mean, I believe that he personally did want to make some pretty substantive changes, and he got healthcare out. Good job. But you're just kind of stuck. You get the hand you're dealt there. Now, vice president looks like a lot of fun, however. Like, I would love to be Joe Biden. That would be great.
But that's because you don't do anything but kiss babies.
Yes, that's why.
And you get a nice little house, the Naval Observatory, a little bit of a salary, some staff.
Watch your Trans Am shirtless in the front yard like he does every Saturday. You know, I'm kind of jealous, honestly.
But you're saying that governors can do more.
Yes, well, especially in Kentucky, because the governor in Kentucky is one of the strongest executives in the United States. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I'm totally going to run with it.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think people are really aware of that. For instance, California, by design, has a weak governor. And so it's very difficult to get, from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Jerry Brown, you can get elected, but try and do something. You've got, and the legislature passes the buck. It all ends up in the referendum process, which is hideously broken. And so it's almost an ungovernable state. But Kentucky's 4 million people. It's smaller and has a history of a strong state house. That's great. And I'm really thrilled.
Yeah, it's kind of good, especially if you're the one who knows what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, but some of it's a little too strong. Like you can issue pardons like SQL statements. All people who are this, born before this, are pardoned, and it just goes. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I was like, really? All right. I mean, in case we have another civil war, maybe that'll come in handy. I don't know.
So you said the debate was the most challenging thing you've done so far. It is. It has to be. We talked about it a little bit before the show began. It has to be nerve-wracking because it is a very high stakes. There are only 3 of them. It's the biggest audience you're going to have at any point in the campaign, and it's so easy to make the soundbite that kills your candidacy, basically. But just a misstatement, because unfortunately we live in this world of gotcha media where if they can get you, they you just have, there's no sense of, well, he didn't really mean that. Nobody wants that. They all want the quick kill. So that I can see why that was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, although it depends though. Like your misstatement has to be at least in the realm of possibility, because I actually did make one that the Republican called out, but it didn't really impact me because it was pretty clear. I said essentially, word for word, that it was a fantastic thing that Massachusetts had a heroin problem.
Whoops.
Yeah, well, but here's the deal. Everybody knows that's not actually
can't possibly be what you meant.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, whoops, that's a Freudian slip. No, I don't really. Nobody thinks it's great that Massachusetts has a heroin problem.
Right.
So, so there are some you can recover from. The ones you cannot recover from are the ones that when you say it, it's the thing you were like, like you're a secret Nazi or something, you actually blurt that out. Like that's going to cause you some trouble. So that was the one thing, like I didn't understand that how many things that could go wrong are actually out of play because I don't harbor any secret positions on anything that could possibly get me in trouble. Because my thing is more like, let me give you an example of that. So I do believe some things that probably other people don't necessarily believe. I got asked this question and I answered it straight up, not in the debate. They said, what do you feel about assisted suicide? Which is actually the first assisted suicide questions I've gotten this year. And I was like, well, I'm in favor of it personally, but I'm not sure the state is. And if the voters aren't willing to do it, then I'm not either. And it's also way down my priority list. I mean, the upshot is that there are things that I believe that possibly the vast majority of Kentuckians don't. And to that I say, don't worry, I won't do any of those things. Because, I mean, why fight an uphill battle? And there's so many other problems that need fixing. we're never going to get to it. So I firmly believe in letting people be themselves. I mean, I think I got this from running FARC all these years. I mean, you've been on FARC. I mean, you know what those guys are like, right? There's a couple million of them, okay? They're like crazy and they're jerks. And here's the deal. What I managed to do with FARC, not necessarily accidentally, but was sort of the point is that on FARC, you were allowed to keep your identity, even if you're a jerk. And I kind of am too, actually. So I kind of get it. But the upshot is that isn't that the place we all want to live, where, you know, the government essentially is going, okay, you know what, go ahead and be who you want. Just quit messing with other people and we'll be good. And I'm not going to impose my will on you because there's way more other things to do than just mess around with that.
I'm so impressed that FARC has survived 17 years because, there aren't really any other crowdsourced news. I mean, Dig went down.
Yeah, Slashdot is still kicking around.
Slashdot's still around. Although I told somebody that the other day, and they said, really?
Yeah. Well, I get that with FARC occasionally, too. So, you know, I totally understand. The general pattern was you found it when you were 22. Yeah, you read it while you were at that crappy job, and then you got a promotion, and then you disappeared.
Yeah.
And we started asking people who came back after a long hiatus is what happened. And you know what happened? They got another promotion.
Now they have more
this time.
time.
It was just something where now they have more time. They got the one where now they're not working 60-hour days anymore, and then they pod back in like, oh, this is still here. We're still cranking along. So yeah.
So FARC is ad supported, always has been.
Mm-hmm.
The ad world has changed. Ads have gotten more annoying. Do you use an ad network?
Yeah.
Do you sell the ads yourself? How does that work?
We use multiple ad networks, and we sort of an ad hoc thing where we sort of mix them in because occasionally, and it drives us nuts, but these autoplay audio ads will slip in. They're basically low dollar bid amounts, and somebody will like do a switcheroo at the last minute. And I hate those as much as anybody else. We don't get paid anything for them either. So it's kind of aggravating. Like, I don't understand why either the ad industry or advertisers hang on to the idea that maybe if we were just louder and more obnoxious and harder to get rid of, that would be like, oh, now I like ads. Like, I don't get it. Like, where did they come up with this idea from? This makes no sense.
It's, I've mentioned this. We've talked a lot about this lately. You know, Steve Gibson, who does security now, is adamantly a pro ad blocker. I, on the other hand, as an ad-supported medium, understand the need for ads, and I worry that what we're going to end up doing is create a gated community of either paid services or just lose a lot of the free and open internet. I really got scared this morning. I went to Wired.com, and one of their top stories, I can't remember which one it was, you click the link and it says, sorry, you can't read this on Wired.com until Tuesday. If you want to read this, read it in Apple News. And it sent chills down my spine because it is basically the move to a gated community. Apple, it's becoming more clear by allowing ad blockers on iOS with iOS 9. And by the way, they're very popular. Immediately became the top downloads on the App Store. Have effectively made it difficult for sites like Fark.com to continue on iOS, which is a very important, not the only platform, but a very important platform. Nevertheless, what it does is it pushes you into an app where, in all likelihood, you'll use an ad network by Apple, and that Apple will get a cut, and those ads will just migrate to the app. And I feel like that's really kind of I feel like Apple's not acting on behalf of the user.
Yeah.
So it's very complicated. Yeah, they're really promoting their business.
It's gone one step worse than that. Have you talked about hashed email data before, by any chance? Are you aware of it?
No, let's talk about that. What is that?
Look that up if you find it. Not a lot of media companies talking about this because they're all selling it.
What is it?
And I know this because so somebody approached me last year. It was actually a year ago last November, and they said, would you like to sell your hashed email data? I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, so basically what you do is if on your website you can track actions. And usually this would be like signing up for an account, posting a comment, or whatever. Like if you have any kind of an action that you can attach to an email address, then what they want to buy is they give you a hash. You hash all your email addresses, and then you hash some other bits of data that they want to collect. And then that's what they're buying. And they pay for it on a per 1,000 basis. And I was like,
what are they? They're not getting email addresses, right? What are they getting?
Well, they're getting hashed email addresses. So here's the thing. Every retail outlet you've ever gone to asked you for your email address and you gave it to them. So they've got it. They have you in a database. And they also know, for example, Best Buy knows that 2 years ago you bought an iPad, and that probably means you're about ready to buy another iPad. So Best Buy is desperately trying to serve you ads for iPads, but they don't know where you are. This is how they find you. They buy the hashed email data in real time. And the way this works is basically it's all hashed because you don't want to give them an email address. You want to give them a hashed email, but the hashes match. So Best Buy runs their hashed email database against yours. All the matches are all of the ones that are equivalent. And now they know where you are on the internet in real time. And they've been selling this stuff for the last year.
In other words, they don't have your email address, but what they do have is a unique identifier.
They got a hashed email address, which matches on both sides.
Yeah.
And now they know where. So they don't know who all these other people are, but they know you're on this website right now, and boom, they can drop an ad right to you.
So it's another form of tracking.
Yeah. Well, here's what's really disturbing about that. They know where you are in real time, and then thanks to Facebook and Twitter algorithms, they also know what your mood is. Which that's the part that concerns me, because like sometimes I have too many bourbons in the evening, and I don't want to start getting ads for stuff.
They know when you're drunk.
Really want right then. Because that doesn't work out well for me. It never has.
So I run an ad blocker. I run uBlock Origin on my browser here, and I went to Fark.com, and I got an interesting little pop-up that says, "Hey, you're running an ad blocker. Would you mind consider signing up?" Well, there's two things you offer. One is consider signing up for Total Fark, which is a paid ad-free version of Fark for $5 a month. The other one that popped up earlier was, or would you mind disabling your ad blockers to support us? So both of which seem quite a reasonable response to ad blocking. There are some sites, I think CNET's doing this, that say you can't come in. You're letting people in, but you're just saying, would you like, and there's even a little, I can even close that box. So my question is, how's that working for you?
Pretty well. I mean, we still have a higher percentage of people who use ad block than anybody else, but that's because the makeup of the audience is smarter.
Yes.
And when we ask people why they're using it, it's actually rarely, I hate ads. It's, I have a computer that occasionally when these autoplay video ads shows up, it crashes the browser and I can't use it. And I'm like, well, yeah, I kind of get it. That makes perfect sense. You know, I mean,
well, there are a lot of arguments there are a lot of arguments, including malware being pushed through ad networks. Yeah. Which happens from time to time as well.
It does, yeah.
But I do also think that's it's a little disingenuous, because really the truth is we also don't want to see ads. People say that. Well, it's not about ads. It's about the tracking. It's about the malware. It's about crashing my browser. But you know what? It's also about the ads.
Yeah. I would say this, though. So one of the interesting things, if you run the numbers on it, like on a per audience member basis, the amount of money that Fark makes off of you, just yourself, is probably like 25 cents. So that's why if somebody's got an option for even like $1 a month, like we have a $2.50 a month option, that is so much more money than we make off of anybody with advertising, that if enough people pick that, we could just get rid of them.
It makes up for it. It makes up for it. Yeah. You don't need 100% support. You need 25% support, or less.
Yeah, or less even. And there's another thing you could do too. Some people don't like it, but I actually don't mind it too much. I haven't signed up for it. It's the Google Contributor Project. Have you seen that one?
I like that idea. Now, do you get supported by that?
Yeah, so not that many people are using it yet. If everybody converted over to it, it would be amazing for digital media. And the reason why is, and I don't know how they pitch this exactly, but what it really does is it makes you a bidder in the ad system. And basically what you're doing is you're saying, oh, well, you know what? I would pay 25 cents not to see an ad. Well, it turns out they're trying to buy one for like 1,000th of that figure.
So you win.
And people, yeah, you win. And not only that, but it drives the amount of money that so if advertisers are actually going to buy ads that people see, they have to pay a lot more.
Oh, yeah,
so what this does is this increases the ad quality and at the same time keeps your favorite site running, because it puts you in there like you're an advertiser. And you get to pick the backgrounds. You can pick like cats or you know, bunnies with pancakes on their heads or whatever. It's not a bad deal. But that actually, like, if everybody would do that, would be good too. But my concern is like I'm still in contact with all the existing Web 2.0 blog folks, and every single one of them is struggling right now. I mean, revenues are down across the board. It's really rough, actually. These things are cyclical, so I'm sort of optimistic that, you know, this pops back out in some other direction. But there's a lot of guys out there struggling. I mean, Metafilter almost went down. I'm trying to think who else closed the doors recently. GigaOM, I think.
Yep.
Didn't they crash?
And this is
Yeah,
all
and it's
before
really-
ad Blockalypse, which started last
Right,
Wednesday
yeah.
with iOS. I don't know how many of your visitors use mobile Safari.
You know, I don't know actually. Over half our mobile viewers, but as far as you know,
Right.
how many, I haven't seen it.
Well, it's
we
at
don't
least
really
half
get
of
a ton
them.
of money off of mobile, so yeah, we don't get a ton of money off of mobile, so it's like, you know, it's probably a
deal.
wash at this point. But
Yeah.
yeah, the problem really is basically, you know, unless something's going to have to change in order to be able to support. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this big, you know, sort of, it's going to be Facebook, Google, and, you know, a couple other big companies running the internet. But you know what? We've been here before. You know, in the late 90s, AOL was this behemoth that was so big. The question was the internet going to survive? Is it just going to be AOL? And everybody forgets that. So this has happened before, and it's come back around again, and we'll just have to see what happens, because I'm really not sure where we're going with that.
Yeah, I mentioned that when pop-up ads became so annoying, every browser built in pop-up blockers, and it just became the default. Of course, this is much more of a broad brush. This kills all ads, kills all, in most cases, it depends on the blocker you're using, kills tracking as well, which means you aren't going to get metrics about your visitors. Those visitors will appear almost invisible to you unless you parse your logs by hand. And so all of that really undermines a free and open web. But at the same time, I don't blame people for running ad blockers, because these ads have gotten so obnoxious and so unusable. Frankly, it's far worse on mobile. There are sites I can't even go to on mobile because there's so much crap on it.
Yeah, it seems like if I click to like my local newspaper on mobile, I feel like I have to hit like 5 Xboxes just to see the thing. You know, and they're all over the place too. And it's like, what, again, who thinks this is a really great way to advertise? Like, I don't get it. Like, what would probably solve this problem better is if the advertising industry itself took a really hard look at what it was doing and realizes that, you know, they're the ones causing this problem. If their ads weren't so obnoxious, they didn't crash browsers, if you didn't jump in the way of my content, what if you just like put out good ads for products that people wanted to buy? I know that's a revolutionary thought, but I don't feel like they've contemplated that route.
That's, I guess, the best outcome, the best hope for the outcome of this is that they'll evolve. My fear is that the way advertisers will evolve into something called native content, which is basically stealth ads. Ads that look like editorial and aren't.
Yeah, and they've been trying that for a while. I honestly think we're starting to get to, you know, that's going to peak out here pretty soon as well.
I hope
It seems
so.
to be a race to the bottom by the companies doing it, so we'll just see how it goes. I keep arguing, too, that, like, you know, if you guys had some sort of a contextual component to that, like, I don't know what these algorithms are that think that they're pulling, you know, native ad content that people want to see. They claim that it's based on what you like, based on some tracking stuff, but honestly, they don't have any idea what I like based on what they're serving me, so I don't know what's going on.
Same thing with ad tracking. It doesn't work. In fact, I think if it worked better, people might tolerate it better. But all you end up seeing is the same ad on 800 sites for something that you already bought. And it's like, well,
yeah, if I had actually relevant advertising, it would be probably okay. I would be less likely to have that up, honestly. But yeah.
We're talking to Drew Curtis. You can see why he makes a great candidate. He just like, he's authentic, he's honest, he speaks the truth. And of course, that's exactly what everybody has said can never win in politics. You can't win in politics by telling the truth. Impossible. Final words coming up in just a moment with Drew. It's so great to talk to you again. Our show today brought to you by Prosper.com. Prosper is such a great idea. It's the internet's answer to holding your hand out saying, hey, Uncle Luke, can you lend me some money? I want to start a business. Or worse, you know, going to a bank, you have to put on pants, a top hat, tie. This is a better idea. It's a peer-to-peer lending marketplace. This is all the rage right now on the internet, and it's brilliant. Prosper brings people with money to lend together with people who need to borrow in a system that works very well because it's all transparent, it's all upfront. You know exactly what you're getting. You can borrow as much as $35,000. You can get it in as few as 5 days. But the best part is you can go right now to prosper.com/twit and find out exactly what your rate will be. A fixed low-rate loan. That's a great start. In fact, if you're right now, if you're just burdened with credit card debt, I think this is the #1 thing people are using Prosper for right now. You go there, pay off those ridiculously high-rate credit cards with a low fixed-rate loan. You know exactly what your payment is each month, and you're going to get out from under that debt. It is fantastic. You can fix up the house. You can. It's a really great way to get some money quick. It connects people, and that's what's so good about it. Prosper's made of people. So I want you to go right now to prosper.com/twit.
prosper.com/twit. Find out what your low rate will be. And by the way, that won't affect your good credit. Prosper.com/twit. And right now they're offering Twit users a $50 Visa gift card when you get that loan, up to $35,000 in your account in as little as 5 days, and a $50 Visa gift card. But you've got to go to prosper.com/twit. Drew Curtis is our guest. So glad to have him. Hope to heck you win. Is it a lot of work running for governor?
Yeah, it kind of is, although it's the helpful part is, having been an entrepreneur, I've seen this pattern before. Like, I don't know how, if I was a lawyer, I would be going crazy. And the reason why is because as an entrepreneur, there's always too much to do.
Right.
And eventually, if you're not going to go crazy, you have to just decide, you know what, I'm going to march with the army I have, and I'll do the best job. The problem with running for office is it's 1,000 times worse. There's no way I could ever possibly get through all of the stuff that would actually make sense to do. So on the one hand, it's been good because, now I can, don't have to worry about it. On the other hand, though, it's like it's just a crushing amount of work to do, and you more or less have to ignore it. The other hard part is also being the third-party candidate is that the media, and by the way, this is one of my biggest pieces of advice if anybody wants to try this, is that the media guys are used to third-party candidates just calling them up and screaming at them.
Right.
Because, and this happened too, it's like I had no leg to stand on until I qualified for the ballot in August. But even after I qualified, they would say the two candidates. And I was like, guys, I'm on the ballot.
Right.
I'm like right next to them, and the problem is that they're not trying to pretend I don't exist. They just forgot because they're trained to, it's the only thing they've ever seen. They think it's the only way it can work. And I understand it. But we got around it by one. Every time we saw an article about the two candidates, we'd hit them up and say, hey, listen, I'm on the ballot too. Would you please mention me the next time? And if you ask nicely, they'll do it. So there's a lot of training involved to try to get the media to start thinking about it differently. And now the one I'm trying to overcome is the one where they say, I'm the best candidate, but I can't win. So that's progress. We'll see if I can, convince them that that's not a good thing to say either. And we'll see where it goes.
How's fundraising going? Is that important? Is it an expensive process?
It is very important, but not for the reasons everybody thinks. I took a look at what you could possibly spend on advertising, and it turns out like TV ads are not super effective. If I was going to do anything, I would do a video ad and then do, super specific targeting on YouTube or Facebook. We haven't raised enough money for even that at this point. But one of the reasons why the money matters is because it's actually the easiest way for you to get the media to take your campaign seriously. And it's a bit of a trick because they shouldn't do this, but they do.
Yeah.
And here's an example. So one of the conditions of running for office was my wife said we cannot kick our own money in. And the reason why is because we talked to a bunch of people, and they said if you do that, you will not be able to stop throwing money at this thing. It will eat every last dime you've got. Most candidates end up going bankrupt as a result of this. But you end up with an interesting conundrum where, the media coverage ends up being something like the following. So right around the time the primaries ended, I didn't have a primary. They reported on how much we had raised. And I think we'd raised like $35,000, which isn't much. And the Democrat is going to clock in somewhere around $10 million.
Whoa.
Luckily, he's blowing it all on God knows what. I mean, they spent $800,000 and didn't even buy an ad between January and May. And he's still burning through it at a crazy rate. Like, they must be having some great parties over there. That's all I can figure. But the Republican, though, clocked in at, I think it was at $1.82 million. And that's how they reported it. But here's where that came from. 1.75, he wrote a check.
Wow.
Which means I almost outraised him. But that's not how it got reported. It was $1.82 million and $35,000. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It's just the way that the media guys look at it, but they do use the amount of money you put in a campaign as a proxy for how likely you are to win. So if I was an internet entrepreneur that had scads of cash lying around, here's what I would do. Announce your campaign, loan your campaign $2 to $5 million. Boom, done. That's all you got to do. Instant credibility.
Right.
They'll be going nuts over you. And it's crazy that it's that easy, but that's all you have to do. And then you'd have a way better head start than we did on that. So, but after that, it's that's the main thing is that I don't really know what you would spend the money on per se. I mean, if we had the money, I would, like I said, I would do an internet ad campaign or something or rather. But the upshot is that, right now, since the debates last week, the consistent level of fundraising with us not having to do anything has actually spiked up quite a bit. And by the way, if you don't mind me being a self-serving jerk here for a couple of seconds, you may be interested to hear that you do not have to be a resident of Kentucky to donate to my campaign. Yeah, you actually just need to be a U.S. citizen, and it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in Japan or Germany or wherever, but if you're a United States citizen and you like what you heard and you think this might be a good idea, because honestly, if we did have more money, we would be farther ahead, no doubt. The campaign website is drewcurtis.com. And if you want to jump straight to the donate page, just type in /donate and you'll get right there. But we've got it in handy 72-point font in case you're blind and can't figure out why I would be asking for this. But seriously, this has such an impact, you have no idea. And in fact, like the uptick in the amount of donations and the people that have donated, even 10 to 25 bucks, you can get a great purple shirt. It's fantastic. But, you know, we've had several Californians donate at the $1,000 level, which is as high as you can get. And the reason why that matters so much is two reasons. One, it turns out that the Democrat in particular, it turns out people who get appointed to office, mostly who have been appointed by Democrats in the last 8 years, seem to really, really like the Democratic candidate for some reason.
Surprise.
Don't mind giving that guy $1,000 bucks, but I'm sure there's nothing wrong going on there. You know, it's probably all on the up and up. You know what?
It might be. I mean, you feel grateful, right? And you'd like to get that job the next 4 years.
Sure, well, that's what they say. But at any rate, the other problem I've got is that the special interests are also the ones who give money, but in Kentucky, corporations can't donate. So usually it's people who own them or are her major shareholders. And here's sort of my second problem is I've already made it very clear that I am not selling laws to the point where, and I kid you not, this is going to sound made up, but this actually happened. So in May, about a week or two after the primaries were over, the coal companies, they had a debate. They called the two guys, the Democrat and the Republican, and for some reason they held it in Virginia. I don't know why that was. And then they went. Like, that's embarrassing. Aren't you running for governor of Kentucky? Wow. And a bunch of coal companies say, well, we'd like you to have a secret debate, so don't tell anybody. And we're going to hold it in another state. And by the way, there's no influence going on here, of course, right? Well, you know, here's the thing. It's like, what was the confidentiality thing about? And you know, the crazy thing is they actually admitted that they're going to do it again.
Oh, my God.
So,
and of course, it's an audience. It's a very small audience. It's the coal industry.
Right, yeah. And I guarantee you every person in that room wrote a $1,000 check to somebody. Or
and
maybe both.
And the questions are things like, well, what governor, if you're governor, what laws are you going to pass to benefit us?
Exactly. What are you going to make coal an unregulated food stuff? I think is probably, you know, can we eat that? You know, I don't know. I mean, the upshot is I'm fairly, you know, I'm impartial to coal. I mean, we don't pollute that much in Kentucky to where it's that big a deal. But it's also not good for the environment. And by the way, global warming's happening, duh. So we'll just get that out of the way. But here's the thing. It's like, well, I don't want to harm those guys, but I think they should stop dumping pollution into creeks. It just sort of makes sense. Like, you can't do it for free. Come on, guys. Right. So the upshot is that, you know, so I'm up against that. I mean, these guys have $1,000 donors coming out of their ears. But the good news is we've been able to do some incredible things. Like, I haven't spent a dime on advertising yet. And I'm predicting we're going to clock in at 20% in about a week.
That's so exciting.
Which is a pretty good head start. So any amount more money we get between now and then is going to go a long way. And like I said, if we pull this off, we have fundamentally changed politics in your state as well. So if you like that idea, you know, help me out.
Even if you don't pull it off, what you're showing is you're teaching the press, you know, you got to start paying attention that it isn't the two parties, that there can be a third party, that the third party, and I think this is a lesson that we will learn in the next few years in the United States because we have to. But I would love to see you get elected. I'm going to go give you some money right away.
That was my secret sort of guilt about this, is that the reason that I jumped in here is because this is what I saw coming. And I don't know if I'm going to be the person to do it, but I guarantee you that if I don't pull this off, somebody's going to.
Yes.
And if not this year, then next year. And if not next year, then certainly by 2018, somebody's going to do this. And it's going to have the same impact. And so I was just getting out in front is really what it boils down to. I'm not creating this. I am probably the first person out there trying to execute on this level. And I'm hopeful that I'll be successful. But if I'm not, I guarantee you somebody is going to do this, because this is essentially politics disruption moment. It's on deck.
Citizen candidate Drew Curtis. Go to drewcurtis.com if you'd like to donate or find out more. Follow Drew's campaign on Twitter. It is Curtis4Gov, at Curtis4Gov.
Gov. And for a guy who seldom wears a tie, I think that is the silliest logo.
Yeah, isn't it great? Everybody's like, is that a ghost? I'm like, if you think so, sure. I mean, yeah. The idea was I wanted to do something different because everybody else is like, American flags and stars, and I guess we have stars. But yeah, the idea was more like, let's go with something completely different here because this is something you've never seen before.
Drew is a great guy. Fark.com is a great site. And I can't imagine anybody to be a better governor for Kentucky. Man, you'd have my vote in a heartbeat. Even where we disagree on issues. And I think that's the most important thing. No candidate's going to agree on every issue with you. What you want is a candidate who's honest, who's going to do what he can to help people. And who better than a citizen candidate? Drew Curtis, good luck. I think this is fantastic. We'll watch with great interest. The debates are streamed, so at least the last one was. I presume you could be able to watch the next couple and watch how Drew does. We'll all be rooting for you.
I think they all will. And the debate that was just passed is online, so you can check that out. And I also had apparently a home run interview with WFPL in Louisville on Thursday based on how Twitter exploded after I did it. So check both those out and then keep an eye out and see what you like, what you see.
Politics does matter. It's just a question of getting the right candidates. Thank you, Drew. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Good luck. We do triangulation every Monday. I love this. Isn't it great? It's so exciting. 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. Tune in. You can watch live, ask questions in the chat room. If you can't watch live, as with all of our shows, we make them on demand. Available on our site, twit.tv/TRI for this show. And by the way, the new Twit website has a new feature. We've just added links. So if you go to twit.tv, what people told us, well, one of the things I go to twit.tv for is just to find out what the latest shows are. The links that say latest, news, help and how-to, and reviews, those are all live now. So if you want to see all the latest shows in chronological order, or all the latest news shows in chronological order, or all the help and how-to or review shows, you can do that. People said we wanted that, and so we have done that for you. Twit.tv/TRI is the direct page to get the latest triangulation. But you know what? We'd love it if you subscribed, because that way you'll get each episode. And we think you're going to love every episode of Triangulation. It's always fascinating. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on Triangulation.